Hey there, welcome to the comparison of the Sony ZV-E1 and ZV-E10. These two cameras have been making waves in the world of content creation as they are both designed for vloggers and YouTubers. The ZV-E1 is obviously a more powerful camera, but it also costs 3 times the price of the ZV-E10. So this comparison aims to show you how much difference there is and help you decide whether it is worth paying 3 times the price. By the way, I have also made a comparison of the ZV-E10 and A7 IV and ZV-E1 and A7 IV, so check them out if you're interested. Let's start with their outlook. They are both very lightweight, with the ZV-E1 having a larger grip and battery than the ZV-E10. They both have a multi-angle screen, a zoom-in, zoom-out rocker for clear image zoom, and they also only have one card slot and no viewfinder. Now I want to show you some side-by-side videos and see if you can tell which is shot with which camera. For the ZV-E1, I'll use Tamron 28-200 full-frame lens. And for ZV-E10, I will use Sigma 18-50 lens. All of them were shot with picture profile off, active steady shot, and other settings are all the same. The photos on the left-hand side are from the ZV-E1 and on the right-hand are from the ZV-E10. Even though they are both shot with active steady shot, the active steady shot on the ZV-E10 has a larger crop than on the ZV-E1. When the lighting is good, in terms of video quality, I think most footages are very similar. For low light, the ZV-E1 is obviously the winner. On the ZV-E10, I normally won't use an ISO higher than 3200 because it's simply too noisy. For slow motion, the ZV-E1 can record 4K 60p, while the ZV-E10 can only record 1080 in 60 frames per second. So there is a huge difference. In my experience, in good lighting environment, 4K and HD are generally not that different, as you can see in this comparison. But from time to time, you will record some insanely bad 1080 footage, like this one, and it is even more noticeable in low light conditions. As for 120p footage, currently both cameras can only support 1080. But the ZV-E1's 1080 is way better than the ZV-E10's 1080 quality. In terms of stabilization, ZV-E1 is without a doubt the winner. It has the best stabilization in the Sony camera system. With the new dynamic active steady shot feature, you can walk while holding the camera. On the other hand, ZV-E10 doesn't have any in-body stabilization, so you have 3 choices. First, you can use a lens with optical steady shot, which is often more expensive. Second, you can use active steady shot, which will crop the frame by 40%, and it only works well for still or panning shots. Third, you can use catalyst browse, which works pretty well, but it takes too long to process. So if your content requires a lot of walking, ZV-E1 is going to be much more helpful. When using the dynamic active steady shot feature on the ZV-E1 camera, it is worth considering using an APS-C lens. This is because the cropping percentage of the feature is just about the right size to cover the black edges that appear when using an APS-C lens. So if you plan on always using dynamic active steady shot, using an APS-C lens may be more reasonable. Here's a quality comparison. Let's take a look. Again, I think the results are very close. It's pretty similar to the first test at the beginning of the video. However, there are a few things to pay attention to when using an APS-C lens on ZV-E1. So check the video at the top out for more details. When it comes to color grading, it is easy to see the difference between the two cameras. The ZV-E1 is capable of recording 10-bit color, while the ZV-E10 only supports 8-bit. This is how it looks when applying only the basic color space transform from S-Log3 to Rec 709. You can see the highlights of ZV-E10 footage are blown out, resulting in lost details. After adjusting the light and shadow, you can see that we have retained the details of ZV-E10's highlight area, but a strange pixel pattern appears. The transition from one color to another is not very smooth, while the 10-bit footage looks more natural. So if you plan to do some heavy color grading to your footage, a 10-bit color camera will provide you with more flexibility. The ZV-E1 has the new intelligent 3-capsule microphone. So depending on where your subject is, you can set the microphone's direction to front, rear, all directions, or auto. Now I am recording with the Sony ZV-E1 microphone, and the mode is set to auto right now. Next, I will change to front. So what you're hearing is front, and obviously no one is at the front, so my voice might sound lower right now. The volume might sound lower. And now I'm going to change to all directions. So now you're listening to is all directions. Now I'm going to change it to rear. What you're hearing now is the microphone direction set to rear. On the ZV-E10, you can't choose the direction of the microphone. Now I am recording with the ZV-E10 microphone. There is no direction to choose, so there's only one mode. Both cameras are designed as vlogging cameras, but I believe most vloggers still need a photography function. So let's take a look at these images here. When viewed on most social media platforms at that size, I don't think there's any quality difference, except that the full-frame ZV-E1 creates more obvious bokeh. But when you zoom in, the results are quite surprising to me. I've always assumed that the 12 megapixel ZV-E1 cannot be the 24 megapixel ZV-E10. But for photo number 1, ZV-E1 is sharper than ZV-E10 when you look closely at the hair area. For photos number 2, it is difficult to tell, but I believe ZV-E1 is a tiny bit sharper. And for the next 2 sets of photos, ZV-E10 actually looks slightly sharper, but it also has more noise in the shadow area. And when you use ISO higher than 3200, ZV-E1 beats ZV-E10 completely, even before you zoom in. And when you take photos with ZV-E1 in an APS-C lens, the quality is also better than I expected. Both cameras are for content creators, so you have some very handy functions like background defocus, which automatically helps you create more shallow depth of field. You also have product showcase mode, as well as soft skin effect. ZV-E1 offers something else that ZV-E10 lacks. For example, you have more recognition targets, you have framing stabilizer as well as auto framing. You can also load your own LUTs into the camera. You have cine vlog mode. If you want to see how these functions work, feel free to check out the related videos in the description box. Now let's also talk about some features that ZV-E10 wins over ZV-E1. The ZV-E10 has both mechanical shutter and electronic shutter, while the ZV-E1 only has the electronic shutter. The problem with electronic shutter is that it is more likely to create distortion if you are taking photos of fast-moving objects, and it can create black bars under certain artificial lighting. I had always assumed that the ZV-E1 is more likely to overheat than the ZV-E10, but the result was surprising. I tested both cameras indoors at 24 degrees Celsius using 4K 30p. I opened the camera screens to allow better airflow, and to my surprise, both cameras lasted for more than an hour. Around 1 hour and 10 minutes, the high temperature warning appeared on the ZV-E10's monitor, and after a couple of minutes, it overheated and shut down. On the other hand, the ZV-E1 kept on going strong for a whole hour and 30 minutes, and I decided it was enough and stopped the test. By the way, previously I also did a test with the ZV-E1 outdoors under direct sunlight, recording in 4K 60p at 29 degrees Celsius. It managed to keep going for about 18 minutes and 30 seconds. Of course, we can't compare this directly with the ZV-E10 since it doesn't have the 4K 60p option. But honestly, for most vlogging purpose, I believe both cameras are more than enough. So which camera should you choose? Here are some of the factors that I consider deal breakers. The first one, and the most obvious one, is your budget. If you only have the budget for ZV-E10, that's alright, ZV-E10 is an amazing budget-friendly camera. Other deal breakers are slow motion, stabilization, and extreme low light. If you need to shoot slow motion, ZV-E1 is going to be way better than ZV-E10 because it has 4K 60p, and there's going to be 4K 120p this summer. And if your content requires a lot of walking movement, You can save a lot of time because you don't need catalyst browse anymore. If you want to shoot in low light, it depends on what kind of low light environment it is. Sometimes you can fix it by using a faster lens, but if it is really dark, the ZV-E1 is going to make your work much cleaner. I hope this helped you make a decision about which camera is right for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.